How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Having a good morning so far?
Yeah. Had the NAM convention yesterday.
Oh, how was that?
It was
Was
fun.
it? I've heard it's
Yeah.
changed a lot throughout the years.
It's uh it's a lot smaller this
Oh,
year and last year. I think next year I think it might finally be back to normal, but not quite there yet.
you think that's because of COVID?
I think
Or
COVID as well as they usually do it in January here, so maybe doing it in April is not the best thing for some companies, maybe. That's just a guess
yeah,
though.
probably busier during the spring than during the winter.
Probably.
Yeah, yeah. I've thought about making it to one of those. We were supposed to have a booth. I think they used to have a booth all the time, but we were supposed to. I think it was 2019 and just couldn't swing it with the time. And then I don't know if it's still something that Metal Nation is even doing or not. But obviously, with the world shutting down for a year and a half, it kind of put a wrench in everything. So I don't know what's going on anymore.
None of us really do.
Right, in general. That's not
Hmm.
just even a non thing. That's yeah, in general. So yeah, you guys have had this album done for years because you did it along with the first one. Is it have you been listening to it throughout the years, which I assume probably not because most musicians don't after they're done with it want to get a break from it.
Yeah, I usually don't listen to a record for a couple months after we're done mixing it and it's been mastered and I've like approved all the mixing and the mastering process. I usually take a very long break,
Mm-hmm.
and I think with this record, I waited longer than normal because of the fact that we did so many songs, and at the end of it, I was just, I'm going to take a break from this. And, but I would put it on from time to time. I didn't listen to it a whole lot during the last 3.5 years, but um, started listening to it again shortly before this last tour.
So how was it revisiting it after so much time?
Uh, it was cool. Like I usually don't like. I'm not happy with a record when we finish it for some reason, and I kind of have a little freak out moment where I think it sucks. I think, just the worst things you can possibly think go through my head. And uh, but by the time, after a certain amount of time goes by, I started listening to it again, and I'm super happy with the record.
Yeah.
And I do think it's, uh, I want to say it's probably the best record that we've put out in a very long time.
It's pretty awesome. And the two releases that you did so far, actually, uh, um, oh my gosh, I'm going to space the name now. If Blood is Life,
Mm-hmm.
or is my favorite on the album, and then you guys just released that
Is it really?
singles. It
Okay,
is,
cool.
it is, because it has some um like kind of twists and turns throughout it that you don't necessarily expect, and I like
Mm-hmm.
that in songs, and so I thought it was the first one that really stood out from the rest for me. So when I saw you guys release that as a single, I thought that was pretty cool. But I had already heard before I got the album Through the Depths, and so that one probably, I mean, probably would have as well. But the more I listen to it, I've listened to it quite a few times the past couple days, and the more I listen to it, the more I hear different like twists through songs that maybe weren't apparent the first time or the second time around, so it's been really fun. It's one of those that I get something new every time I listen to it, and I enjoy that.
Good. I
Got
like to
layers.
hear that. It's always a good thing when you start finding little itty bitty things in a
Yeah.
record that you start noticing the more you listen to it. For me, it's always like when I first got into Opeth, or
really
any
is.
kind of prog band. That's kind of the way things go, where it grows on you slowly rather than all at once.
Yeah, well, and there is so many layers with Opeth for sure. But
Yeah,
I
there's
think
there's a
it can.
lot more to listen to in an Opeth song than there is a DevilDriver song.
Yeah, oh yeah, Opeth are just kind of a beast of their own. But I always notice with any music, guitar work first, just because guitar is my favorite instrument to listen to play. Um, and there's so many interesting riffs and melodic changes, and then like the Spanish guitar part of, I think it was the summoning at the beginning of it. It almost sounded like a Spanish guitar. And so there's so many very interesting elements of the guitar work. Um, with it being a concept album, do you feel like that helped with figuring out where you wanted to go with the music, or did it even play a part in it at all?
Not musically. We would say the only thing, um, and I got to be careful how I word this because I don't want people to take it the wrong way. But the one thing that Neil and I discussed about what we were going to do with both of these records was slow the tempos down.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily slow the music down, but just
Right.
kind of go in there with not having every song, hovering around 170 to 190 or, up to 200 beats per minute. And a lot of these songs have a tendency to be in the lower range of things, hovering around 120 to 140. And I had never gone into a record like that. And that was something that Neil brought up before we started working on it. And I was just kind of like, and you can still have a brutally fast song, but that's one of the nice things about going in with a slower tempo
Right.
is you kind of have free reign to, you can still play fast, but you can also slow things down and have things be a little bit, I guess, a little bit more dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, that was really the only thing that we discussed before going into the record. It's I don't have like a grand plan of a record, because DevilDriver, we've established our sound at this
Yeah,
point,
for sure.
and I get my guitar in my hand and I start noodling around until something just resonates with me, and I I'm like, okay, got one riff, see if I can come up with another one, and I'll think, okay, I think this will be a good verse, or I think this will be a good chorus, or I can start, the song out like this. Like "Keep Away from Me" is a good example from Volume One. Like that clean riff that starts out the record. It's just that's how I started writing the song. It was clean tone and just kind of developed the whole song based off that riff. And that's always been my writing process. I think it's more up to Dez and to he doesn't really like to start writing lyrics until he has all the material in front of him. So it's his job to kind of come up with the concept.
So with these volumes, the music, since you guys wrote it all together anyways, the music came first and then he decided to do the dealing with demons concept. And that, so it went in that, uh, oh my gosh, what's the word? It went that way versus coming up with a concept and saying, okay, this is what these albums are going to be about, and writing music from there.
Yeah, and I think we try to we used to, we always have working titles for songs before
Mm-hmm.
they get to Dez, and we used to just give them sometimes goofy titles, and a while ago I started giving the songs working titles that Dez might be able to work off of.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since we started doing that, there are quite a few songs on, like "My Night Sky" off "Trust No One." That was the working title for
Mm-hmm.
that song. And I believe there's a few on there too. And he's very good at coming up with interesting working titles. And a lot of them ended up Des would use the working titles as inspiration and roll with it and write a song around it.
That's cool.
And I think that really helps him in the long run. And yeah, the majority of the songs we don't keep the working titles. I would say there's probably like 5 to 10 total between from Trust No One on. But that's the one way that I can kind of you know get into Dez's head a little bit and try to help him, like, basically start to come up with something out of nothing.
Right.
And just take it from there.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned Neil a couple times as far as some different maybe uh ideas that he had that you guys hadn't done before. Moving forward with Neil not being a part of DevilDriver anymore, is that something that like you'll just carry with you, or are you just going to go back to the tried and true, or what's moving forward, without having that extra mindset?
Well, we got Miller back now,
Mm-hmm.
and he was always a real big driving force in the writing process for us. I don't think he's written a song in 13 years,
You're a little
but
rusty.
but I mean, I've known Miller since I was 18, and we've spent a lot of time together in the studio or at my house writing back in the day, and I know it's still in there. When he picked up his bass, I don't think he had touched it very much in his time out of the band, and when he picked it up, for him it just looked like it was just like riding a bike.
Yeah.
So I think when he finally sits down and starts writing, I'm sure it's going to be just as magical as it was back in the day. And now, unfortunately, he lives in Maine, so he's on the other side of the
Well,
country. But
yeah.
we had a conversation about what we're going to do with the next record, and it's going to probably consist mostly of him recording riffs onto his phone, sending them to
Mm-hmm.
me, and then me developing them from there. But Miller has a very good knack for writing. He's a very, very talented writer. They're not like super, sophisticated, fast, tons of notes, playing a million miles per hour, but he has the ability to write riffs that are very catchy and simple. And I do think it's harder to write a catchy riff that's simple rather than a catchy riff that's a little bit more
Technical.
complicated.
Right.
But that's always been his strong suit. And so anybody that's been complaining about returning to the old DevilDriver sound, they're probably still going to get their wish on this on the next record after Dealing with Demons Volume 2.
Oh gosh. Yeah, people are just, going to have their thoughts and opinions all over the place. That's kind of, I'll tell you what, when we went into the pandemic, I thought, oh, this is going to bring out a lot of really good, because it seems like anytime communities go through crises, there's a lot of good that comes out of it. And boy, I was wrong, wrong, wrong.
Uh, I do think some good has come out of it. I'm sure there's a lot of bands out there and people that have cranked out some pretty awesome art
Oh, for
in the
sure,
in the last
music
4 years.
wise.
And but and for me, the pandemic didn't really affect me a whole lot.
That's good. That's
I was
good.
still I was still able to work. I'm one of those people that I am built for a pandemic. I have my studio here. I can stay in here 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and as long as I step outside from time to time, and
Mhm.
other than when our when the beaches got closed at
Oh, geez.
in California, I couldn't go surfing anymore. It
Mhm.
didn't last that long, but outside of that, I was able to write music. I was able to help out my family with their business, and I was still, I was able to go surfing. And if
Mhm.
I have those three things, I got a dog that helps,
Yes. Yes.
and um, Yeah, I was fine. Um,
Yeah.
I almost feel a little guilty saying that because I know a lot of
No.
people went through a lot of crap, but
Yeah.
I'm one of the fortunate ones where don't get me wrong, there are still aspects of it that really sucked, but
Yeah.
I just, well, I just focus on the fact that we don't have a choice.
Right. For sure.
So, when I don't have a choice, it kind of makes things easy.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. When it's outside of your control, you don't try to keep controlling it. No, I agree. I'm very introverted. And so I was definitely comfortable. I just was really surprised with how the states especially kind of reacted. I kind of thought it was going to be more of a coming together instead of a tearing apart, and so that bummed me out. But musically there was so many incredible albums that came out during that time. There was a lot more space that I think bands were able to have to create, and find new avenues to create, since a lot of them couldn't get together. So yeah, there was of course, a lot of positive things always come out of bad things. Thank goodness for that. I want to talk about your dog though, because I know that you rescued a pit, and that's what we always rescue pits, because they're unfortunately always in the Humane Society.
Hmm.
But they're the sweetest, sweetest dogs. So tell me about. I know you specifically. It sounded like, from what I had understood, specifically went out for a pit. So tell me about that whole.
Well, I wanted a pit, never wanted a pit, but my last roommate that I had in Santa Barbara, before I moved out of there when I was in college, this guy named Cliff, he already had a Rhodesian Ridgeback, and then when I moved in with him, his roommate had a lab.
Mhm.
So the lab had to go with his old roommate, and so he wanted a new dog for his Rhodesian. And he went to the pound, and he didn't want a pit either. But the guy there was like, "I know you don't want a pit, but you need to see this dog." And he got this amazing pit bull named Molly.
Hmm.
And um, ever since then, Great Danes are also another favorite breed of mine because I had one for a long time. But um, kind of didn't want to get a dog that size again at
Mhm.
this point. And um, I had a pit one other time, and I just love them for some reason. They're
Mhm.
just my favorite breed. So, and same as you go to a shelter and there's always tons of pit bulls there.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a weird situation. You can only during the pandemic the shelter that I was going to, you had to go online, you pick two dogs, and you got 5 minutes with each of them when you went.
Oh, geez.
The first time I went, you know, I had another dog at home. I have a cat at home that's really tiny, so I had to be very careful about,
Yeah.
not getting an aggressive dog. Wasn't feeling the first two. The next time I went, I was playing with, the dog that Moki that I eventually adopted, and while I was hanging out with her, one of the volunteers that goes there just to play with the dogs walked by me, and she's just kind of mouthed to me like she's a really good dog.
Oh.
And there's two people in line behind me that wanted her too,
Mhm.
and um, they were like, there's so many pits. They're like, if you like her, I'll take her. If you don't like her, I'm gonna take her. But if you do, there's plenty of dogs to go around.
Mhm. Right.
And yeah, ended up taking her home. She's great. Took a little while to get her acclimated to the cat,
Yeah.
but they sleep on the bed with us together at
Oh,
night, and very happy I finally got a dog. I
good.
I always need one in my life.
Yeah, yeah, they really enrich them for sure. We lost our blue nose in 2020, and I was panicking because my old dog, he's part pit bull, part Great Dane, actually. He kind of looks like Scooby Doo. Uh,
Really?
yeah, he's
Wow.
he's super cool. He can't see. He has inflamed corneas. He's never been able to see. He can't hear very well, which is just always. I mean, I adopted him when he was a year and a half, and he couldn't see or hear even back then. But he's old. At this point, I've had him for 11 to 12 years. He's old. And so I started panicking when we had lost our blue nose about him deteriorating. And so was pestering my husband. Our Blue Nose was my husband's dog, was pestering him about getting another dog, and he was like, I just lost my dog, like quit pestering me. But I had, before he had finally said, my goodness, give me some time to grieve, I had already sent him some pictures, and I felt terrible. I was like, you're right, I'm so sorry. And the last picture that I had sent him before I backed off, he was like, okay, go check her out. So she's part pit, part lab. And we've had her for 2 years now. We got her in 2020. And she is so, like, she knew almost like she was coming into a grieving family. She is so loving. She instead of licking you, she stamps her mouth on your mouth, like she like really like kisses, and she'll
Mm-hmm.
hug you by putting her head it like just into you. She is the most loving, sweetest dog ever, and just helped us so much get through, our losing our other pup. I forget how hard that is. Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, I think the pit, at least around here, the pit bull, the idea of all pit bulls being bad and dangerous, I think, is loosening up a lot, because I see a
Good.
lot of people walking pit bulls more,
Oh,
a lot
good.
more than I did before the pandemic. So I think a lot of them ended up
Oh,
getting adopted. It's good to see that people are, you know, realizing that they're not all monsters.
no, no. They're the sweetest. I have my son's now 15, but he was yeah, like 2 or 3 when I had gotten our dog's name is Riddick because he has inflamed cornea, so you can't see the whites or the
Hmm.
colors of his eyes. So I named him Riddick. I think his name was Asher when I got him. But I would never get a potentially aggressive dog around my child, even now that he's 15. I never, ever, ever. And so it's funny when people, yeah, start going off about pits. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just not how it is. They're very, very sweet, loving dogs.
Hmm.
Yeah. So back to the music. So I'm curious, you've been doing this for a while now. What do you remember the moment in life where you had decided this is something I want to do? And do you remember the moment in life when you were like, I actually get to do this?
Yes. Uh, I think I was 6 and watching MTV,
Jeez.
and pour some sugar came on. Pour some sugar on me came on, and that was it.
That was the song. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was kind of like the same thing I went through with Metallica with Def Leppard, because I got into them on Hysteria, which a lot like Metallica, I think is their last really great record.
Mhm.
And I got into Metallica on the Black Album, and I was, luckily I got to backtrack and go back in time. And with Def Leppard, I got into, High and Dry and On Through the Night and Pyromania. And I just loved Def Leppard. I wasn't, I kind of started off with the whole hair metal thing, and I was into the Scorpions and Skid Row, Motley Crue. Um, I was in maybe to Warrant and Poison maybe for a month, and then I kind of
Yeah.
went on to the darker stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the moment. It just clicked in me. It's like, that's what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes to make it happen. And then the moment where I realized that I was gonna be able to do it, it wasn't so much on the first tour with DevilDriver. So what happened with that is, Evan, the original guitar player, didn't want to go to Europe, and he made that decision 2 days before they were going to leave. And luckily, Jeff and Miller I let them stay at my house because we had an extra room, and when they were in between tours, and they had only done 2 tours at this point. They did one with Superjoint Ritual, and then they did one with Opeth. And um, Jeff came home one day, told me what happened about Evan, and I offered to go. He said okay. Long story short, my passport was expired,
Oh,
so I
geez.
had to drive down to LA from Santa Barbara. It's about a 2-hour drive. Get that whole process expedited. Left without my passport. Went, hoping that I would get it the next day. Went back up, stayed up all night with Jeff, learning I think I had to learn 8 songs,
Jeez.
7 or 8 songs. So, and then the next day, I flew to um, Gothenburg to open up for In Flames.
Oh, I love In Flames. Oh,
So do I.
they're so
And so
incredible.
I was just, you know, on cloud nine, over the moon.
Yes.
Just like, I can't believe I'm finally out here.
In
You
Europe,
know,
playing with In Flames. That's what a cool moment.
yeah, it was very surreal for me. And it was a short tour. It was only about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. But then I came home, and well, while I was over there, I started hearing chatter about me becoming a permanent member, because I was just supposed to be filling in for Evan
Mhm.
for that duration of that tour. And at one point, I didn't get a hard yes, but it started looking like they were going to hire me full time. Then I got home, and there was a guy named Joe Schmidt that played in a band called Pressure 4-5, and they were kind of like hometown heroes for Santa Barbara. They were signed to DreamWorks for a while. Had played Ozfest, but the band broke up. Miller actually played in the band shortly before they broke up for a while,
Mhm.
and they had a good rapport with Joe. And Joe is an awesome dude. They really liked his writing style, but in the long run. So I went through this period when I got home where I was like, I thought I was going to be in the band, and then I got home and they were like, you might not be in the band. And I was a little pissed off at first for probably like the first hour.
Yeah.
And then I kind of realized, like, they got to do what's best for the band. And so I get it. So went through this waiting period of about a week.
Oh, geez.
And
Longest week of your life.
oh, that was the longest week of my life. And then I was working at the UPS store at the time, and Des called me, and he said something like, "Get your ass to practice. You're in the band." And I
Oh,
was like,
geez.
"I can't come to practice right now because I got to work." And I kind of left the people at the UPS store high and dry, because I was like, I went there and I'm like, I can't work, but I need you to take my passport photo for me, because we did that there. And my manager at the time, who I still keep in touch with, he didn't own the business, but the owners, they were about to fire me for leaving, which I couldn't blame him, but
Right.
he talked him out of it.
Uh,
And so I did return to work at the UPS store for a while. We were As soon as we got home, we started writing for the Fury of Our Maker's Hands.
mhm.
So we weren't going on tour again very soon. So I was able to keep my job there. And then obviously when we left for Ozfest, I finally put in my 2 weeks, and um, that was that. So I went directly from touring Europe with In Flames to doing Ozfest '04, which
Jeez.
was one of the best lineups. It
Mhm.
had That's when Rob Halford came back to Judas Priest. Full lineup of the original lineup of Black Sabbath,
Jeez.
Dimmy Borgir, Slipknot, Hatebreed, Lamb of God. I mean, the list just goes on. It was so much fun, and after that 2 months of touring, I still didn't want to go home.
You were like, hey, this is what I've been wanting since I was 6. This is what I'm going
Yeah,
to be doing.
yeah, and I was like, I had no money. I was living in my rehearsal space in Santa Barbara, and you know what? And I didn't care. I
Yeah.
was fine with it.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool introduction to it all.
Yep.
MTV, man, back when they used to actually play music videos was what introduced me to a ton of stuff too.
Yeah,
I,
that's
I, I just,
I
oh,
missed out on a lot of stuff that they didn't play, that uh Miller really opened up my eyes to like the whole Scandinavian scene.
mm-hmm,
And um but for the most part, and still to this day, I'm a little bit more into industrial music.
mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, there's just not that many good industrial bands out there.
Not anymore. In the 90s, that was pretty big, but anymore, you don't see it very often.
Nope.
Yeah. Unless there's like maybe there's an underground scene that I don't know about, but
There is. I look and try to, whenever I find someone that's into industrial music, I have a tendency to, what do you got?
Yeah, right.
Like, tell me about a new band. The only band that I've discovered recently that I really, really like is 3T.
Mm.
That's pretty much the only one I've found in a very long time that I really connect with.
Who's your overall favorite in that category or genre, I guess?
Nine Inch Nails, Ministry, um, kind of are ties. I don't really consider Marilyn Manson industrial, but he does have some industrial gothy elements to his music, and he's always been my all-time favorite. I
Hmm.
was pretty obsessed with ever since when I was 15, I got obsessed with Marilyn Manson, and never really wanted to be in a full-blown metal band like DevilDriver. That's not really
Ah,
where I wanted to go, but um when I heard the first record, I actually, I really enjoyed a lot of it.
mhm.
And don't get me wrong, I love metal, but I always pictured myself to be in an industrial band.
Ha, crazy. Is that something you've ever thought about doing? Like, obviously, Des is doing Cold Chamber again, as you know, as well, of course, as DevilDriver. Has that been something you've ever thought about starting up?
Thought about it, but DevilDriver keeps me very busy.
Oh, for sure, for sure. What is it about the industrial music that you feel like you enjoy so much? What's the piece of it?
I um I guess it has to do with I'm just really into sounds rather
Mhm.
than what you would call music.
Yeah.
And I think probably a lot of it stems from my older brother and sister who are 10 and 13 years older than I am.
Oh, wow.
Listening to a lot of electronic 80s music like Depeche
Mhm.
Mode and things like that. I think just that coming out of their bedrooms, because I love 80s pop,
Yeah.
and Depeche Mode, Susie and the Banshees, any of the bands that kind of had a darker
Hmm.
vibe to them. I, I didn't get into them back then. It was when I was about 18 I started really getting into Depeche Mode and Susie and bands like that. And I think that kind of instilled something into my head a little bit. And I was a pretty angry kid, and so I think I had to find music that suited my mood.
For sure.
And I went through a period too, especially my other brother who is 3 years older than me. He got really into like Paul Oakenfold, Tiesto, rave music,
Hmm.
trance, techno, stuff like that. And he started kind of introducing me to things like that. And he also got me into Fear Factory,
Mm.
and who has a very industrial vibe to him.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
just I remember driving around with one of my brother's friends, and he had this band on, and we're going from party to party in high school, and he had Cam FDM
Hmm.
on this, and that was the moment where I didn't really consider Nine Inch Nails or Ministry industrial, but
Mm.
in that I just never heard the term before.
Yeah.
And when I was driving around with this my brother's friend Justin, and he was playing Cam FDM's album Extort,
Mm.
and I remember being in his car. It was just me and him, and I was like, "What is this?" And he's like, Cam FDM. I'm like, Cam F what? And um, he started to introduce. I can't remember any other bands that he got me into, but that was the moment where I hadn't discovered Manson yet,
Hmm.
and that was like the moment where I was like, okay, I am officially into industrial more than anything else, and I've remained that way ever since.
Wow, it's crazy. I swear our teenage years have such a huge influence on what our music is going to pretty much be like, moving forward. And I don't know if it's just because it's a super emotional time in life. It's a very influential time in life. I don't know for sure what it is, but you
I think
must
you're
be
just
around the
you're
same age as me because I think that all those bands were kind of the same.
yeah. It's
Um,
40. I'm 42. I was born in 81.
okay, I'll be 41 this year. I was born in 82.
Yeah, so we grew up on the same stuff.
Yeah.
And you're
Have
right.
you,
The
oh, go ahead.
90s were um those were the days of when the best industrial music came
Oh,
out,
for sure.
and goth too, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
still like Catatonia. I guess they were more like probably early 2000s, but um I still am a huge, huge fan of them.
we can thank a lot of that to Wax Trax
Hmm.
records. Those which actually they released a documentary about
Hmm.
Wax Trax not too long ago. I think it's up on YouTube, and I watched it finally, and um found out a lot of things about that label that
Huh.
I had no idea about. It's a very interesting documentary.
Oh, I'll have to check it out.
How the two guys had started it. If I remember correctly, they were both married with kids, and then they discovered that they were gay, and then they developed a relationship. And
Oh,
I think their wives were kind of just like, "Well, you got to do what you got to do." And
right.
I'm not. I want to say that one of them might have passed away. I can't remember. Don't quote me on that. But it's very, very interesting documentary.
Oh.
I loved it. Anyone that's
And it was
into
on
industrial
YouTube?
music, yeah, I can't remember what it was called, but if you
Okay.
do a Google search, I'm sure
Yeah.
anybody listening out there could find it if you want a good background on the industrial scene.
Yeah, it'd definitely be interesting. Did you listen to the new Billy Howard album? I mean, it's more
Oh my
synth, but
God, yes.
it's
It is
amazing.
amazing. It is
Yes.
so good. I was kind of expecting another Ashes Divide record.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I love Perfect Circle. I love Tool, and I am a big fan of Billy Howardell, especially since that new record. I mean, there's
Yeah.
not a single bad moment on that record. It is
No, it's a beautiful
flawless.
album. I got to interview him on it, and he said it started as a Ashes Divide album, and then everyone was like, "No, you need to do this as you because it was music that spoke to him when he was younger that he always had wanted to do, and it's a beautiful album."
Yeah, and he worked on it with one of the old guys from Nine Inch Nails.
Mm-hmm.
His name eludes me right now, but I can't think
I can't think
of
of
his
what it
name.
is either.
But yeah, absolutely. I've actually kind of forgotten about it, but I probably listened to that record nonstop for a month.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful album. He did an incredible job. You just when you think that he can't get any more talented, I mean, he goes and pulls something like that out, and you're just he's incredible.
He is.
Yeah. Um, I know I'm taking a lot of your time. I
It's
wanted to
okay. I
I
don't. You're the only interview I have today,
Oh,
so
okay,
no
cool.
worries.
Cool, thank you. I like to ask everybody this because I think it's an important question. What are some things you do for self-care?
Elaborate on that.
Yeah, like things that you do to kind of re-energize yourself or to if you need to relax because you have a lot of stress. Like some people will say meditation, going out in nature, um, those types of things, or just whatever it is, create music.
Yeah, definitely playing guitar, surfing. I used to be very much into kiteboarding, but unfortunately that takes up a lot of time, and I haven't done that in a very long time. Um, I just got myself a banjo,
Oh, fun.
and God, I think I've had it for maybe a week at this point, so I'm not very good yet. But I've gotten very much into bluegrass in
Oh, have you
the
listened
last
to, do you
year or
like the
so.
Dead South?
That's my favorite band.
Have you seen them live?
No, I was actually me and Colton and Nathaniel have Colton the banjo player is a big DevilDriver fan.
Hmm.
So this is kind of an interesting story. I was recording some acoustic guitar, and I had never recorded acoustic guitar before. It's just not something I've really done.
Right.
And I was listening to their song Broken Cowboy,
Mm.
and I was like, I wonder what they did, or what their signal chain was when they recorded that. And I kind of wanted to mimic that tone that they got. So I hit up Nathaniel on Instagram, and he wrote me back. And at the same time, I had a message in my inbox from Colton. And he was like, dude, I am a massive DevilDriver fan. And come to find out that, I'm not sure if all of them are, but I think at least Nathaniel and Colton, and I think one of the other guys are big metalheads.
How funny.
And so Colton and I are actually working on a song together that I think are just, he's pretty much written it. I'm going to get someone to play some drums on it, add my taste to it a little bit. And I got a friend that's going to sing on it. And I'm probably just going to, the idea now is get one song done, see if this music library that licenses music out to TV shows and movies and commercials. And I gave them a record a long, long time ago, and it still gets placement. I was watching Cobra Kai, and one of our songs came on
Oh my gosh, how funny.
from that record that we submitted. It was a lot of leftover DevilDriver stuff that we didn't really want to use, and so we a lot of unfinished songs too that we were just like, we're not going to put this stuff on the record, nor are we ever going to revisit it again. So I had my friend Carl sing on it, and we sold it to the Extreme Music.
Huh.
And so Colton and I started talking, and we're just like, yeah, let's just put it out on YouTube or out on Spotify. I'm like, I got a better idea. So why don't we do one song in super heavy, brutal metal, and just kind of see what happens. I'm going to give it to them. Like, first I want to just finish one song and give it to the library and see, like, okay, if we do a full record of this, would you be interested in it? And so we're just in the very baby steps of the whole thing.
How exciting.
And he's busy working on a new record. I got to start working on new DevilDriver. Austin, DevilDriver's old drummer, that's probably going to end up doing it. As we stated, he's got a job working with people in recovery, and it's taking up a lot of his time. So he's very busy. So it's we're all very busy, but we're slowly chipping away at it.
That's so cool.
Yeah, when my girlfriend moved in with me, I was painting our bedroom, and for some reason I just wanted to listen to bluegrass. So I found a Spotify playlist called Dark Bluegrass, and that's exactly what I typed into the search field. And their song, The Recap, came on, and I must have listened to it 30 times in a row.
It's one of the best
over
ones.
and over and over and over again. And then that just kind of led me on this bluegrass path where, I don't really like, at first I went to Mumford and Sons just because that was the one name that I've been hearing.
Oh, I guess they would be kind of considered bluegrass. I've never put them in that category, but yeah.
But I put them on, didn't really work for me. So I like dark music. I don't really listen to happy music ever. Maybe Bob Marley from time to time. But yeah, I've kind of become obsessed with bluegrass, where 10, 20 years ago, I'd be like, no, I'm not listening to that garbage. Like, it's not for me. But Dez is kind of responsible for it. He always was listening to outlaw country in the back of the bus all the time. And, Hank 3 started to really grow on me. And then, I started getting into Johnny Cash and Dwight Yoakam and all these other guys, all to the point where eventually we did a Outlaws cover record.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, which was awesome.
I put together a Spotify playlist of all the, probably like 30 songs, 40 songs of different people that I had just started researching online to figure out what songs that we were going to do. And then I kind of took a break from it, and I wasn't really able to track down any outlaw country that I really like. But through just listening to bluegrass on Spotify. I'm like, okay, this is what I like,
Yeah.
and honestly, I think I like it almost as much as my love for industrial music.
Well, it's got some kind of metal elements as far as how fast some of the instruments are played. So it's more like a unplugged metal genre. I don't know, in my opinion. Um, but that's
I think a
cool.
lot of the guys are metalheads.
That's so funny. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised by that, but when you initially said that, I kind of was, but I shouldn't be.
Yeah, and another band that I'm really into is called Goodnight Texas, and I came to
Never heard.
find out that I believe the guy that runs that band actually, I don't know what he does, but I think he works for Metallica.
Hmm.
I think I don't know on what capacity, but he I know he lives in San Francisco, which is where their HQ is, and I have no idea what he does. I haven't looked into it, but someone told me that. So
Hmm.
there, yeah, there's a lot of metalheads out there that seem to have a love for bluegrass, and
Yeah.
I unfortunately I've never seen the Dead South, but I got into them literally 2 weeks after they played LA.
Oh gosh. Well, I'm sure that they'll come back out that way again. We got to see them last year. I actually got tickets for my parents too, who had never listened to them before. But I grew up listening to a lot of classic rock, but within a lot of what was considered like the first heavy metal bands like Deep Purple and Sabbath and stuff. Um, but there was a lot of outlaw like Highwayman, Traveling Wilburys, stuff like that too that I grew up on. And so I thought this is so especially my dad's alley. And so I took them and it was one of the best shows I've ever seen. And I've been to a lot of shows.
I spent all of New Year's watching their show that they recorded from, I think it's the Boston House of Blues. Like it was just me and three friends hanging out at my house, and we just left that on the TV all through New Year's. And they just announced some U.S. dates. Unfortunately, they're not coming to LA, so I'm going to be flying to Portland,
Oh,
where
good.
Neil and his wife live now, and I'm going to go see him up there in July.
Awesome. Good. Yeah, that's not too bad of a flight. That's a quick one.
Hmm
I'm going to, I think,
And Colton came out to our show in Austin, actually,
ah,
but once again, we didn't get to meet because
yeah.
he wasn't feeling well, and
Um,
um, so I think he came masked up and stood in a corner and or up in the balcony of the venue that we played, and you know how it is when you're on tour. You got to if
yeah.
anyone even the slightest bit sick,
Hmm.
you
Stay
know, just
away.
yeah, you got to stay
Uh,
away because especially these days,
yeah,
that's
right.
it you one person gets it and it just goes through the bus.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we still and then the very first day of rehearsal for this tour, Nathaniel was in town and he hits me up and like, dude, let's hang out. And I'm like, dude, it's first day of rehearsal. I got three new guys in the van and we've got a
Yeah.
lot of ground to cover. So unfortunately, strike two.
Yeah. It'll have, well, third time's a charm.
Yep. So
And that'll
hopefully,
be Portland, I'm sure.
probably, as long
Yeah.
as I don't get sick and no one else gets sick.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. Yeah. Just cross our fingers for it. We're actually supposed to be flying to Utah next month for Mr. Bungle and the Melvins.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Very nice.
I'm a big Mike Patton fan, and I've never seen him live. I had tickets to Faith No More in Utah as well, in 2020, but it got canceled. So
That's a shame.
yeah, so I'm hoping that we'll be able to make it this time, or that it works out. Like you said, yeah, I think that's one thing that the pandemic kind of got us prepared for is that like anything can happen and just be like you said before, just you got to just be okay with that.
Hmm
Yeah, awesome. I did want to say because you were talking about music on TVs or movies, the first time my husband was telling me the other day, the first time he ever heard Devil Driver was on Scrubs.
Yeah, that's an interesting story too. Our old guitar player Jeff had a friend that um a friend of a friend, or no, he had a friend that was friends with the guy that does that scene.
Oh, huh.
And he got in contact with Jeff. I believe he was trying to get a hold of Trent Reznor because he wanted to do that scene with a Nine Inch Nails song.
Mhm.
And Jeff suggested to him, like, why not use DevilDriver? And so he rolled with it.
Works, I think better than Nine Inch Nails in that scene would have been. It's my favorite show of all time. So
Is it?
I've watched the series a million times.
I
But yeah.
didn't think it was. I didn't know on what capacity they were going to use it, and whenever I see heavy metal music inserted into some TV shows, it usually has a tendency to make me cringe a little bit for some reason. But Scrubs pulled it off perfectly. You
Yeah.
know, it is. I was dying, and to the point where I think I watched it like 4 or 5 times in a row, and I was like, okay, that they did that very well.
Yeah, they did. They did. They were obviously very clever and knew what they were doing because the whole series up until, the end was done really well. So yeah, they definitely did it justice.
Hmm.
Yeah.
They
Awesome.
did.
Well, congratulations on the upcoming release of an album that you've had done forever already. But it's an incredible album. It's really, really fun to like I said, there's so many layers. It's fun to listen to over and over and over again. You don't get bored, you know. There's a lot that gets stuck with you, So obviously has those catchy parts too that I'll be doing the dishes and it'll be going through my head. But yeah, congratulations on another amazing release after all of these years. You guys are still just killing it, and that's not an easy thing to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, one quick last question. What's your favorite
Sure.
beer?
My favorite beer. I would say either Asahi or Sapporo.
Oh, I don't think I've ever had either one of those. What kind of beers are they?
They're Japanese.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
Hmm.
awesome.
I love those, and you can't find them on tap anywhere in the states, but for some reason, you can find them on tap in England.
Oh,
And
weird.
a lot of bars have Asahi on tap in England.
Weird. Can you find like the cans or anything anywhere or bottles
Oh
anywhere?
yeah,
Or oh, you
oh
can.
yeah.
I
Most
wonder if you
grocery
can in
stores,
Idaho.
a lot of grocery stores have them. If not, I'm sure you can get them at like Bevmo or Total Wine. I don't know what you guys have out there, but
I'm in Idaho. there's
hmm.
there's not there's not a lot of leniency when it comes to that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
well, take a look. They're lagers.
Okay.
I'm not a huge fan of like IPAs or darker beers, but um, yeah, if anyone asks me what kind of beer do you want, that's
That's
what I
what you're
tell them.
gonna go for. We used to have a
Yeah.
place called Brewforia that had, or no, it wasn't Brewforia. It was Brewers Haven that had a beer called Rausch beer that was a German smoked porter. That was my absolute favorite, but I can't find it anywhere now. But maybe one of them would have. We don't have Brewforia anymore, but we have a couple other places that maybe would have it. I'll have to look around.
There's yeah, I mean around here you can get Sapporo Asahi or Sapporo Asahi or Kirin. Those they're all kind of similar tasting, and you can get them at any sushi restaurant. Like they always have those
Oh,
three.
okay.
So if you have trouble finding it at a grocery store, go get yourself some sushi, and you can probably find it there.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll do some looking around. I like loggers too, so and I'm always curious to try new ones. So have you ever seen Point Break from the 80s
Oh
or
yeah,
90s? I guess it was probably
90s.
90s.
Mm-hmm.
There's you might not already know this. Georgetown Brewing in Seattle has beers that are named, like one of them's called Johnny Utah, one of them's called War Child, and one of them's called Bodhisattva. And so I'll drink those just because I love it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And so I'll drink them just because I really like that movie, but they're like not beers I normally would drink. It's more just like a
So
nostalgia type thing.
you know the scene where they blow up the gas station?
Yeah,
That was filmed like a mile away from my house.
really?
And if you next time you watch it, so the gas station blows up and Keanu Reeves is chasing Patrick Swayze. They're running after. Right after that, when they go like in between two buildings, there's a place called Dive and Surf, which is the originator, the first store before these two brothers started the wetsuit company Body Glove.
Hmm.
And my nephew has worked there, and now my niece works there too.
Oh my gosh, how funny. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I guess if I have to watch it again to see it, I guess
Yeah,
I'll just
a lot of that was filmed in my area.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. It definitely looks like it's in a California environment, so especially with
Southern
the surfing.
California.
Yeah, especially with the surfing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking so much time with me.
Thank you very much.
For
Appreciate it.
sure. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.